Hello and welcome to my country garden. I'm hiding in the polytunnel at the moment because the frosty weather has now been replaced by rain and it's chucking it down outside. But in the polytunnel that doesn't matter, I can still be getting on with bits and pieces. So we're still fairly early in January. I've sown some seeds so far and they've been veg seeds, but now I'm going to turn my sights to flowers because there's a few flowers that you can start in January. In fact, you really should start in January to give them the growth that they need to give you lots of lovely flowers later on in the year. Now, mostly with the flowers, I'll be sowing them here, but I'll be taking them indoors because they need heat to germinate and then light once they have popped their little heads up from under the soil. But I am actually going to be trying a bit of an experiment as well with one type of flower that I am going to sow in 3 different ways to see which way works best. Okay, the first of the flowers that I'm going to sow today are snapdragons or antirrhinums. This one is a giant flowered mix and I grew these last year. They were lovely. And in fact, this one I also grew last year and saved these seeds. This is, I don't know what the variety is, but I've just named it Snapdragon Medium Height, Pink and Yellow. So descriptive, that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to sow these in a half seed tray like this. And obviously I'll label them. With antirrhinum snapdragon seeds, you don't cover them because they're tiny. You'll see in a moment, you don't need to cover them. So I'll just sow them and then just press them down to make sure that they are touching the soil. Giant flowered. Now what I'm going to do is just pop a little label to mark halfway just so that I know what is on which side. And I'm literally just going to try and sow. I'll go down as close to the soil as possible. And I will broadcast into the air. You can see they're tiny, tiny seeds. I've got plenty left. So that is the giant flowered, and I have actually got my labels, so that's good. And here is the medium pink and yellow. Same thing applies. I've got lots of these actually. There's a bit of sort of chaff mixed in with the seeds. That's just the remnants of the seed heads. So I'm just going to sprinkle those in as well. Doesn't really matter. As long as I make sure I've got some of the seeds in, it should be fine. Right, I've got this guy here that I use to firm down soil, and I'll just firm in so that the seeds are making contact, making sure that I wipe off any excess in case any of the seeds are sticking. Let's not forget the label. Now snapdragons do require a bit of heat to germinate, so I'm going to be taking these indoors and popping them on a heat mat and letting them germinate from there. After that, I will keep them under grow lights so that they don't get too leggy and grow them on until such a time as I can transplant them into larger cells. And then ultimately I will bring them out into the polytunnel. I'll maybe bring them out into the polytunnel March time, keeping an eye on the weather because of course we can still get frosts at that point. But towards the end of March I'll bring them out here and then I'll transition them from here outdoors come May time when the risk of frost has gone. Next I'm going to sow this lobelia. It's called Crystal Palace, and this is like the antirrhinums in so much as you don't cover the seeds, they need light to germinate, and again I'll bring them indoors. They're looking for 15 to 20 degrees C to germinate, and again I'll do the same thing. I will let them germinate, then I'll on a heat, and then I'll pop them under grow lights from there. Now I have already watered the compost in these seed trays, by the way, so I won't need to be doing any watering until now, until they germinate hopefully. And I will pop lids on these when they're indoors on heat so that it keeps the environment a little bit more humid. Now you can see these are tiny, even smaller than the snapdragons, absolutely tiny seeds. So again, I'm just going to do my best to, God, I can't even feel them in my hands. They're so little. Now, I'm just popping the whole lot in there and we'll worry about thinning them out later, assuming they all germinate. But yeah, there's a few seeds there. How many seeds are in this packet? It doesn't say. Lots, however. So, yes. Let me just, I think this is too big actually. So I'm just going to use my fingies to press down to make contact with the soil. It comes with its own label actually. So I'll pop that in and I'll pop, I had written another label anyway. I can always use that when I'm doing the transplanting. So there we have it. Okay, 2 more flowers to sow, and again, same way as before, I'm going to be putting them in this seed tray and taking them indoors, but these do need covered. And the first is Carnation Enchantment Mix. I grew this last year. I'll see if I've got any video footage or photographs of it. They're absolutely lovely. So I'll just pop the rest in, I think. A few more in there. Right, so these are slightly bigger seeds, and we'll just pop as many as possible in here without going absolutely crazy with them, and hopefully we'll get a nice bunch of seedlings. These do want to be covered, and I'm just going to use vermiculite. And finally, for the seeds that need heat that I'm sowing today, I've got scabious or pincushion flower. Now I've never sown scabious before and these seeds came from Doddington Hall Gardens. My brother brought them back last year actually, and the seeds look really strange. So I'm just going to, it's probably got some chaff in among it, so I'm just going to throw these in here and see what happens. And again, vermiculite. So these will go indoors on heat, then when they germinate, under lights. Now I'm going to sow some seeds that I'm going to leave out in the polytunnel because they don't mind the cooler weather. And that is sweet peas. I've got a few packs of sweet peas here. This one is Nia's Blend. I got this from Steve from the Digwell Greenfingers channel. I'm in his monthly gardening club and he sends out seeds each month. So I've got these. I've also got some seeds that I saved from my own sweet peas that grew last year. And finally, I've got this little pack. It's a sweet pea heritage mix. And so if there's space, I will pop these in as well. The sweet peas like to be grown in root trainers or deep pots because they like to send their roots down and have a deep root system. So I am going to be using this. Now this is a great way of growing sweet peas because each of these cassettes come out, and so when your sweet peas have grown and you're wanting to take them out of here to plant them, this cassette just opens like that, like a book, and then you can lift out the sweet peas and keeping the root system intact and not mucking about with it in effect, because they don't really like you doing that. So I have Already watered that compost. I'm going to put 2 seeds in each of the cells, cover with vermiculite, and then put a propagator lid on that, and that is going to stay in the polytunnel. And an important thing with my sweet pea seeds is that I'm going to keep them out of the way of any little critters that want to eat them. So you can see that hanging shelf there in the polytunnel. I'm going to make space and I'm going to pop the sweet pea seeds in the propagator up there. Now, before I get started sowing these sweet pea seeds, a word about the different techniques that you can use. Because actually, a lot of people will soak their sweet pea seeds before they actually sow them. They might soak them in for an hour in quite hot water. They might soak them for a few hours in cold water. Some people scratch away at the shell of each of the seeds, maybe with a nail file, something like that. And other people just sow them directly. Now, I've tried all of these methods, and really the only thing it affects is how quickly your sweet pea seeds will germinate. So I'm not going to muck about. I'm just literally going to take the sweet peas out of the packet and pop them into the cells in the tray. Now, if you're interested in a bit more information about growing sweet peas, at the end of this video, I'll put a link to the video that I did last year before, that explains everything you need to know about growing sweet peas. So take a look at that. Okay, so you can probably see that I haven't filled these up completely. I'm just going to sit the 2 sweet pea seeds in each of these little cells, and I'm going to top it up with vermiculite. Okay. So I'm going to start with this heritage mix, and this one has smaller flowers than some sweet peas, but it's highly scented. So let's get these in. I won't have that many in the packet. You don't tend to get loads. Yeah, you can see, not tons. Cool, so that's the first 3 cassettes sorted out. Now I'll go into my own mix. I hope you can hear me. It's just started chucking it down outside. Bit noisy in here. So yeah, I'm going to go to my own saved seed now. And I've got tons of these, so that's good. And I'll probably just fill up the rest of this with mine, will I? And I'll keep the Nia's ones and pop them on separately. So 2 in there. These are nice big seeds actually. I am not going to bother labelling these. I know they're sweet peas, and by the time they get out onto the sweet pea teepee or wherever I grow them, you're getting a muddle anyway. So I'm just going to, as I say, cover these with vermiculite and then pop them up on the floating shelf to keep them away from critters. And I've still got tons of these left. So I've got plenty more sweet pea seeds to sow and grow on. So I may well do that later on in the month. I don't have another one of these at the moment, but I have got other deep-rooted cells that I will grow into. So I'll show you that when I go about doing it. Now, I had already wet the compost, but what I like doing is just when I put vermiculite on, I'll maybe just add a little bit more moisture to it so that the seeds underneath are kept nice and damp and germinate well. There we go. There we go. So earlier on, before I got rained off, I actually went out to a couple of my beds and I sprinkled some poppy seeds on them. I've got 2 varieties that I saved from my poppies last year. One, I can't remember the varieties, but one is labelled mauve large, so it's a mauve coloured poppy, and it's quite a large one. And it's a papaver type, so like an opium poppy type. And another papaver type is this medium one. And again, I don't know, I can't remember the variety or indeed the colour. I think this maybe is a mix. So I've got these two sets of poppy seeds. So I went out, I sprinkled the poppy seeds on a couple of my beds, and I'll just put in the video that I took when I was doing that, just so you can see what it was about. Now I have some saved poppy seeds that I'm going to direct sow out here. Now it's been freezing, which poppies like. It's slightly warmer today. The ground is still very hard, you can probably hear. So I'm just ruffling, don't know whether that's the correct term, I'm just ruffling the surface just so that in the areas that I drop the seeds, there's maybe more of a chance of them settling down and growing. Now you can see I've got a lot of bulbs already coming up here because this bed has got lots of tulips and daffodils in. It also has some gladioli. It's just too hard at the moment to pull these out. The tops of the gladioli, I'm pulling the bulbs out at the same time, so I'll get them later. But yes, so this is a flower bed and I like a bit of a mishmash. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to sprinkle, after I've done this ruffling up of the surface, if I can get this, no. Once I've done the ruffling up of the surface, I'm going to sprinkle my poppy seeds here. Now I've got two varieties of poppy. Don't know what either of them are because they're saved seed from last year. One is I know is a mauve colour and it's large. The other one I've just put medium poppy and I don't know what the colour is. Might be a mix actually. So I'm going to sprinkle a little of each of these. And I'll probably do this, well I will do this in some other beds as well. Because of course you get lots of poppy seeds. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. And I've got a ton of them in here. So literally sprinkly sprinkle. And I'm putting quite a lot in, but obviously they won't all germinate. So that was the large one. And the medium one, let's have a look at. Now the other good thing about using this bed is the chickens can't get into it because they obviously love getting into beds. So there's the other one, slightly darker seed. And again, sprinkly sprinkle on the beds. And now I do plan to start some poppies inside in the way that I usually start them, and that is literally the way that I am going to start the other flowers that I sowed earlier on. So I'm going to sprinkle them on the surface of the soil, and I'm going to actually put them on heat until they germinate, keep them under lights, and then gradually transition them out to the polytunnel, and then prick them out and grow them on and pop them out as little individual plants. And that's how I've done it in the past, and that's been absolutely fine. So that's two methods that I'm using to grow my poppies, and I'm now going to try another method as well. And it's sort of a halfway house, so it's not indoors and it's not out in the bed, it's actually in the polytunnel. And what I have is I have a tray that's got some compost in. I'm going to sprinkle the poppy seeds on that, and I'm going to leave it in the polytunnel to let them germinate and grow on here. I'm going to use the same varieties for each of these three methods, and we'll just see how they actually get along. And I'll keep you posted as to the different stages of growth with different methods of growing poppies, and you can see for yourself. Okay, here we've got the tray that I'm going to sow the seeds into. I've marked down the middle there, so we've got two halves. I'm going to put the large ones on this side, the medium ones on that side. Just going to sprinkle the seeds on top, press them in, and then I'm going to leave them here out in the polytunnel to hopefully germinate. So here's the large one. Now, if these experiments result in me having hundreds of poppies, so be it. I do not mind. I love them, and there's certainly plenty of space for me to grow them, so that's fine. Simple as that. Right, let's just press them in. This is seed sowing compost with vermiculite mixed in, and I did water it before I sowed the seeds. It's really good to get those seeds sown now. I'll keep you up to date with how everything gets on. I'd love to hear what flowers you're sowing this month. If indeed you are sowing flowers in January, pop something in the comments below. As I said earlier, I'm going to pop a link up now to a video that I made that explains all about sowing and growing sweet peas. And I'll also put up my flower playlist, and that will get you in the mood for growing flowers and having flowers on your garden and in your plot this year. For now though, I think that's me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you again very, very soon. Bye bye for now.